shot won't fall. Wilson, what looks like over the back. Well,
Oh, boy.
Jump ball is the call.
Wow. Stephanie White's upset about that. I thought that was over the back. Wow. Watch this. That's a jump ball?
What if the biggest scandal in the WNBA isn't a locker room feud or a player outburst, but a silent, league-wide revolt playing out in front of millions? One viral clip of Aya Wilson going over the back without a whistle has torn the lid off what players, coaches, and fans say is a rigged system, where superstar treatment and blown calls aren't the exception, they're the rule. And now, for the first time, both teams are speaking out. This isn't just a missed call.
By the way, this is the best thing I've seen from Stephanie White all season long. Right here, she was aggravated by the refs already, and in the fourth quarter, 5:35 left, Stephanie White lost her shit on the sideline. She lost her shit. And
it's the moment the league's credibility cracked wide open. In a moment that quickly ignited widespread backlash, the WNBA found itself at the center of controversy after a viral play involving Aya Wilson and Lexi Hull exposed what many are calling a systemic officiating crisis. The play in question appeared simple on its face. Hull, executing a textbook box out, was positioned perfectly under the basket when Wilson came over her back to claw at the rebound. Instead of the expected foul call, officials whistled for a jump ball. The decision left commentators stunned, coaches outraged, and fans collectively calling foul. This wasn't a marginal call or a judgment error. It was, by all standard interpretations of the rules, a clear over-the-back violation. That the referees not only missed the call but rewarded the offending team with possession via the alternating arrow added insult to injury. What followed was more than just outrage over a single play. It became the symbol of growing dissatisfaction with the state of WNBA officiating, a moment where what was once whispered among fans and speculated on social media was now publicly confirmed and undeniable, captured in one highly shareable video clip that lit the digital sports world on fire. But this wasn't an isolated misjudgment, it was the tipping point. For months, coaches and players had expressed quiet frustration about how games were being officiated, often alluding to inconsistent whistles and favoritism towards certain players. With the Aces versus Fever game serving as the spark, all that built-up resentment finally boiled over. Wilson, a decorated MVP and a dominant presence on the court, became the focal point of the controversy not only because of her actions during the play but due to a growing perception that she is routinely favored by referees. This belief is so ingrained among fans that Wilson has even earned the nickname Whistle Wilson, implying that she receives more favorable treatment than others in the league. Critics point out that while Wilson is undeniably talented, her frequent trips to the free throw line often come under questionable circumstances. In this particular game, she attempted 13 free throws, just 4 fewer than the entire Indiana Fever team combined. For observers who had long suspected bias in officiating, this game became undeniable evidence. It wasn't just poor optics. It was statistical proof that, whether intentional or not, certain players appear to benefit from more lenient or favorable officiating than their peers. What further escalated the controversy was that these observations weren't confined to internet forums or fan Twitter accounts. Broadcasters and analysts on live television acknowledged the apparent bias in real time. Several commentators noted that the calls were disproportionately going in favor of the Las Vegas Aces, further cementing the narrative that the officiating had become tilted. The notion that superstars get the whistle was openly repeated on air, with Wilson being held up as the latest beneficiary of a long-standing, though rarely acknowledged, double standard in professional basketball. This concept, that the league's top stars are shielded from normal scrutiny and disciplinary action on the court, wasn't just a fringe theory anymore. It was being repeated and reinforced by those calling the games, further eroding public confidence in the integrity of the competition. If referees are indeed applying different standards based on a player's status, it undermines not only the results of individual games but the credibility of the league as a whole. The true watershed moment came not from the fans fans or even the analysts, but from the coaches themselves. In an extraordinary show of consensus, both head coaches in the game, Indiana's Stephanie White and Las Vegas's Becky Hammon, voiced serious concern over how the game was officiated. Hammon, whose team arguably benefited from the controversial calls, described the contest as devolving into a rugby match, directly blaming the referees for losing control of the physicality.
Like I said, the referees were starting to get on the side of the aces. They were trying to wheel the aces back in, and Sophie Lexi stepped in and sort of killed it. Kelsey Mitchell never took her foot off the gas tonight.
It's exceedingly rare for a coach to critique officiating in public, let alone a coach whose team was on the receiving end of favorable treatment. That Hammon felt compelled to speak out despite winning the whistle battle suggests she believed the issue went beyond bias. It was about a basic failure to manage the game safely and fairly. Meanwhile, White, who had been fined earlier in the season for criticizing officials, finally let her frustration explode in the fourth quarter, up by more than 20 points.
And let me just play this right here. Roll it.
Lost that lead late.
And you see her.
See on Caitlin
You
Clark.
see her just losing it up here. Losing it.
Wilson misses on
And
the
she
three,
got
and
teed
Stephanie
up
White gets a
right there.
technical on the-
She received a technical foul for a sideline outburst that was as symbolic as it was emotional. Her reaction wasn't about winning or losing that night. It was about drawing a line in the sand. The officiating wasn't just inconsistent. It was unacceptable. Adding another layer of tension, Caitlin Clark, the Fever's rookie phenom who didn't even play in the game, was visibly animated on the sideline. She coached teammates from the bench, reacted to calls with visible dismay, and leapt to high-five players after White's technical foul, signaling complete support for her coach's protest. For a rookie to align herself so openly with a call-out of the officiating speaks volumes about the level of frustration felt within the team. Her actions were interpreted by many fans and analysts as a silent but powerful endorsement of the criticism. She wasn't just a bystander. She was engaged, passionate, and unafraid to co-sign her coach's stance in a very public way. In a league where rookies often keep their heads down and defer to veterans, Clark's engagement stood out and reinforced the idea that the issue wasn't just something bothering a few outspoken coaches. It was a team-wide, possibly league-wide concern. This wasn't the first time White had publicly taken aim at officiating, but what made this moment different was the size of the audience. The game featured some of the league's most high-profile stars, Wilson and Clark, and was played under a massive media spotlight. With so many eyes watching, the stakes were higher, and the impact of poor officiating far greater. Unlike less prominent matchups, this wasn't a game that could be quietly brushed aside. The Wilson/Hull play, so visually clear in its wrongdoing, became the face of the issue. For players and coaches who'd spent months biting their tongues, it was a gift, irrefutable evidence they could point to when calling for change. The moment was a lightning rod, transforming a long-simmering problem into a national conversation. But the protest didn't stop with coaches or players. It extended to social media, where fans dissected every frame of the now infamous clip, shared their own examples of questionable officiating, and reignited discussions about fairness in the league. Hashtags like #WhistleWilson and #FixTheRefs began trending, with thousands of fans urging the league to take the issue seriously. Many compared the situation to similar officiating crises in other leagues, but what made this different was the widespread agreement from all sides. Players, coaches, fans, and analysts were on the same page. This wasn't a partisan issue. It was a collective reckoning. Even players on social media, while often careful with their words, began liking or subtly engaging with posts critical of the officiating, signaling solidarity with the movement even if they couldn't say it outright. In the days following the game, the WNBA's silence became increasingly deafening. Fans waited for a response, for an explanation or assurance that steps were being taken to address the problem. But nothing came. That lack of communication only made things worse. By failing to acknowledge the controversy, the league gave the impression that it didn't see a problem, or worse, that it didn't care. Silence became complicity, and for a growing number of fans and observers, that silence was all the confirmation they needed. If the league wouldn't even admit there was a problem, how could it be trusted to fix it? This lack of transparency didn't just frustrate fans. It further damaged the league's credibility at a time when viewership and interest were growing thanks to stars like Clark. Ultimately, what this moment revealed is that the WNBA has a decision to make. It can either continue to ignore the mounting frustration and risk alienating its growing fan base, or it can address the issue head-on with accountability, transparency, and reform. Suggestions from fans and analysts include retraining referees, introducing new standards for evaluating officials, or implementing third-party review systems to ensure fairness. Whatever path the league chooses, the time for silence is over. The viral clip that started it all was more than a blown call. It was a spark that lit a fire the league can no longer contain. Every game from here on out will be watched more closely, every whistle scrutinized more heavily. The question now is whether the WNBA will rise to the occasion or allow its integrity to be permanently questioned.